We've been waiting a while for Doctor Who star David Tennant to star in Good. It was first announced back in 2019, but then COVID intervened. But finally it's here, at the Harold Pinter Theatre in London. So, was it worth the wait? Well, the reviews are in, and it's safe to say the answer is yes. A qualified yes, but a yes nevertheless. There's a slew of 4-star reviews, which makes it unusual that only one of the major critics gave the show 5 stars. In a moment, I'll give you some details about what they thought of Good and of David Tennant's performance in it, and I'll try to discover why it only received one 5-star review. But first, let me quickly tell you what the late C.P. Taylor's Good is about. It's set in Germany in the 1930s. John Halder thinks of himself as a good man, but we soon realise he has a hole where his conscience should be. So, in small, incremental steps, he goes along with the developing horrors of the Nazi government. And it's not the first time it's been said that the educated middle classes were the easiest to persuade to support the Nazis, but rarely, if ever, so chillingly as in this play. Dominic Cavendish in The Telegraph makes a similar point. He's the product of a civilised society abounding with rational discourse about inner lives, but unable to tame wilder impulses. The person I consider to be our most astute theatre critic, The Observer's Susanna Clapp, described it thus: "We slide into becoming monsters, cut off from the world by the mantras in our heads." As Andrei Lukovsky in Time Out put it, it's not so much a play about the banality of evil, that old cliché, as the apathy of evil. Nick Curtis in the Evening Standard underlined the point. This isn't just a play about Germany, but about the moral flaws and the capacity for betrayal within us all. Arifa Akbar in The Guardian had this insight: the good of the title is not, as we assume, referring to a good man turned bad, but a man who turns bad because he serves his own good above all else. Now, I saw the original production back in the 1980s with one of our finest actors, the late Alan Howard. So, how good is David Tennant in Good? Let's forget about Doctor Who. The critics loved his journey through time and space to 1930s Germany. Well, mostly. Tennant is excellent as Halder, said Broadway World's Aliv Al-Hassan. For The Telegraph, it's a hypnotic performance. Hypnotic was Anya Ryan's word for him in The Independent. Tennant gives Halder's sense of detachment equal sway to his sense of decency. That was Dominic Maxwell in The Times. And the Evening Standard said of Mr. Tennant, "This is the truest, most natural performance I've ever seen him give in a theatre." Sarah Hemming in the Financial Times said, "Tennant is riveting, witty and intensely human, but also brilliantly precise, evolving from reasoned detachment towards chilling self-preservation." "It's a meticulous performance of cold, creeping horror," said Sam Marlowe in The Stage. "He's not some gargoyle, he's utterly ordinary." And that was what impressed The Guardian too. Tennant is spellbinding in his ordinariness. Time Out observed, "His performance is perfectly judged. He never tries to sell us John as a nice guy. There's always a hole where there should be a conscience." For Fiona Mountford in The Eye, David Tennant proves once more what a magnetic stage presence he is. And she continued, "Tennant gives a compelling account of the emotional distance we can create between ourselves and our actions." "Tennant is perfect casting," opined What's on Stage's Sarah Crompton. "He has a remarkable ability as an actor to suggest a darkness beneath an affable surface." But she offered a small caveat: it's a chilling performance rather than a moving one. And the Sunday Times' Quentin Letts was also unmoved. "Tennant's performance is linear, unshowy, and rather a disappointment." Still, no obvious reason so far why there shouldn't have been more than one 5-star review. Was it Dominic Cooke's production, perhaps? No, that went down well on the whole. Time Out called it a taut, claustrophobic production. "The first act needs a little more pace, but the second half feels perfectly done," said Broadway World. And The Guardian agreed, but put it more lyrically. Dominic Cooke ekes out the drama until it blooms into compelling psychological theatre with the feel of a fever dream. Patrick Marmion in the Daily Mail was one of those who was unimpressed. The show is oddly humdrum, he said. Mr. Cooke has reduced the cast to 3, making, in my opinion, it even harder to justify the incredibly high ticket prices. So Sharon Small and Elliot Levey play all the other parts. For some this worked, but for others, having 3 actors constantly switching between roles, often mid-dialogue, feels endlessly fiddly, said Time Out, making it a slightly messy play. And what's on stage observed it confuses an already difficult text. Even so, they liked the other 2 actors. If the point of Tennant's performance is his lack of emotion, then Levey and Small are there to provide the fireworks, said Time Out. Excellent support, agreed the Times. Small brings detail and poignance at the stage. And for Broadway World, Levey is wonderful, giving Halder's Jewish friend Morris complete realism and heart. Vicki Mortimer's set also hit the right note for many of the critics. The stage described it as a strip-lit concrete bunker, feels starkly sinister, a featureless chamber where atrocity might be routinely committed. But the Sunday Times was not convinced. Visually, it becomes a little boring, he said. So is it the play itself? Has it not stood the test of time? Well, quite the opposite, according to most of the critics. For Time Out, it's a potent vision of a society slipping into fascism, adding, it still has the power to chill you to the bone. And the stage said it's still relevant. The play's pertinence in our age of populism, scapegoating and sloganeering remains sharp. The Eye called it a timely revival, reminding a 2022 audience of the consequence of dreadful compromise. There were some dissenting voices. The Observer was not convinced. This is an intriguing rather than a truly disturbing play. The hero's ideological capture is too easy. And the Daily Mail put the boot in, calling it a well-intentioned antique. Well, you know, sometimes a production has everything going for it, but it doesn't just quite hit the heights. And that's what seems to have happened with Good. The critics liked it, but apart from the Financial Times, no one was carried away by this cerebral play. A finely calibrated evening that does not quite land its punch, said the Observer. A view echoed by what's on stage. Neither the story nor the production itself quite land as powerfully as anticipated. The Times says something similar, but puts it more positively. Don't expect fireworks. What you get is something stranger, more insidious, and I suspect, much more memorable. For The Independent, it was a mixed bag. The Standard also found it hard to get enthusiastic. This is an important rather than an enjoyable watch. But a final word from the Telegraph. £155 for the seat I was sitting in. It was good, but not that good. Please subscribe to my channel and you'll be the first to know about my future reviews and reviews of reviews. You can also follow me on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. And if you prefer not to have to look at me, and I wouldn't blame you, you can read what I have to say on my website, Theatre.Reviews. Thank you for watching.